There we go. Good evening. My name is Fred Shang, and I am the Mayor Pro Tem. And we are about to start on our October 8th Port Orchard City Council meeting. I would first like to ask that Councilmember Rosa Pepe read our guiding principles to us.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Our guiding principles: are we raising the bar in all of our actions? Are we honoring the past but not living in the past? Are we building positive connections with our community and outside partners? Is the decision-making process building a diverse, equitable, and inclusive community?
Thank you. And next, we have the pledge, and I've asked Heidi, Councilmember Fenton, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice to all.
Thank you. Okay, now we are about to approve the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda, consent or main agenda, council members? Yes, Councilmember Rosa Pepe.
Mayor, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, are there any other motions?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I was ready to go. I did just want to talk about a couple things on E and F on the consent agenda. I just want a little bit more clarification. So.
Okay, so we can move consent agendas items E and F to business. Is there a second for that?
Point of order, Mayor Pro Tem. There's an existing motion that needs to be handled before we move to the next.
We can treat her oral request as an amendment to the motion. So the amendment to the motion now is to approve the agenda with E and F removed.
I'll second that.
Okay.
And so we just need to vote on the amendment first, and then we'd move back to the approval.
Thank you, Ms. Archer. Okay, so all in favor of the amendment to the motion, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay or raise your hand. Okay, so it looks like the amendment passes. Now we need to vote on the amended motion. Is there any further discussion on that, or?
Mayor,
okay.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
I would amend my motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Great. Okay. The motion maker and the second have made the amended motion. So all in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye. Aye.
And all opposed say nay or raise your hand. And that motion passes unanimously. Okay, now we are at our first citizens' comments. Anyone in the audience? It doesn't look like we have anyone online, but if anyone would like to speak, you are welcome to speak. Please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone wishing to speak?
Brandy, we're not hearing him.
Yeah, I don't hear anything, but I see a visual. I believe it's Mark. Did you want to speak to us? Okay, we don't hear you yet.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. She's dealing with technology issues over here. So technology issues is what I'm here proposing. So I'm asking y'all, I live 1 block up from Bay Street.
Mark, can I interrupt you? Can you please introduce yourself with your name and your address?
Yes, Fred. My name is Mark Morgan. My address is 1021 Coles Lane, Port Orchard, Washington, 98366. I live 1 up from downtown from Bay Street, and I'm here to ask the city council to install noise cameras in our downtown core to protect our community against these people with illegally modified car exhaust systems that are terrorizing our community. I'll tell you personally, this has been going on for a couple of years now. I'll tell you personally, as an Army veteran, these ones that are first off, I'm going to say these illegally modified exhaust systems are against state law, county code, and city ordinance. It's time to enforce it. I'll tell you personally, as an Army veteran, these ones that are modified to sound like gunfire, I wake up in the middle of the night with an adrenaline rush, spiked blood pressure, and spiked heart rate. My mom lives in the Rockwell condos. She says it's a wonder she ain't had a heart attack yet. My buddy just told me that his uncle, who lives on Beach Drive, just moved out of his house that he loved and lived in years because of the trauma these loud exhaust systems have inflicted upon him. I've talked to a lot of business owners downtown. Everyone I talk to agrees this is an issue that needs solved. So I'm here to ask y'all to take advantage of current technology to solve this problem. Install noise cameras. I recommend from the city limits here, west, Port Orchard on Bay Street, to east on Beach Drive. And let's crack down on these people who are blatantly violating the law and terrorizing our neighborhoods and our community. Y'all's jobs is protect the safety and well-being of the community. So there's a technological tool for do it. So install noise cameras and get these people that are terrorizing our community out of here. Any questions? I'm open to answer them.
We're not allowed to ask questions.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Will you please be sure to leave your contact information with the city clerk in case we have further questions for you? And also, I would invite you to follow up your remarks with an email if you choose to do so, because I think that will underscore your remarks for us.
I know some of y'all live down here and have experienced this. Heidi, Fred, y'all have heard these things that sound like machine gun fire. It's well documented. It's well documented that this stuff is bad for public health and safety. You've been spent millions on a pedestrian pathway and now people are being terrorized by this. We got tourists coming in on cruise ships over to Bremerton, coming over to Bremerton and experiencing this. We got downtown parks with people being traumatized by this. No, it's time to enforce the laws. Like I said, state, county, and city laws. Stop
Thank you.
from terrorizing our community. There's technology. I know the police force. I'm not denigrating our police force. I thank them for their service. But there's technology available. So I'm asking y'all to utilize that to restore peace, safety, and health to our downtown core.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Mark.
Beach Drive, maybe up, because today my wife and I went for a walk, and our first one we heard that sounded like gunfire. We were walking down Rockwell. Pulls out probably out of the probationary Department of Corrections office. Pulls down to the stop sign. No left turn required, but what did he do? Sped out with the left turn. So these people are blatant law disregarders. So
I appreciate your comments. Thank you for coming. And I would now like to let Councilmember Diener speak. He has his hand raised.
Well, I just wanted to let Deputy Chief Andy Brandon know that maybe he could do a quick bit of looking into this if he's got some time. I just want to hear a little bit more about this for good of the order at the end of the meeting. I didn't know noise cameras were a thing, but if they are a thing, then I think it's worth talking about.
they are things, sir, and it's been implemented in various cities, Washington State, and the Washington State Legislature just passed some allowances and maybe some funding available for people to.
Mark, thank you for the information. This is great. If you know a particular brands, please email them to us because this sounds like the perfect technology that you've described. And Deputy Chief, if you have any comments now, you can raise your hand. Otherwise, as Councilmember Diener said, we could hear from you later.
I will
I
try to
think-
research them. I'm not aware of a program, but I'll try to do some research.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just wrap up and let y'all get on with your regular business. I appreciate it. But yeah, Fred, it is technology that is available and a lot of cities are now implementing it. And yeah, there's a lot of trauma that's been caused by it within our downtown core. And y'all's job is, and technically, y'all, I'm not threatening you, but if you read the Port Orchard City Ordinance, it says those who fail to enforce the law are guilty of violating the law. So I've talked to a lot of business owners. They're very frustrated. Shall we rally them to hold y'all responsible? We'll see. Utilize the technology to restore safety and peace to our community. Thank y'all. Do it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
We'll see you
thank
again later. Thank you.
Thank you.
So have a good evening. I appreciate you hearing from me.
You as
Thank
well.
you.
Thank you.
For your service too. All right. I'm out. I just here to say that and let y'all get on.
Okay. Goodbye. All right, so let's see. Our next item is the presentation. We have none. There is also no public hearing.
Consent agenda, Fred.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought we passed that. Okay, sorry. Are there any
Mayor Pro Tem?
motion- I'm sorry. Yes, John.
Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion to approve consent agenda as amended.
I'll second that.
Great, there is a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as amended. All in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay and also raise your hand. Maybe raise your hand the other way. Okay. All right, the consent agenda as amended passes unanimously. We are now on to our first business item, which is item 7A. I believe that's Director Ryan's.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Before you tonight is a resolution for the Ruby Creek Lift Station design. This will authorize a professional service agreement with Consor North America Incorporated for the design and permitting for the Ruby Creek Lift Station project. Kitsap Transit is developing the Ruby Creek Park and Ride facility in Port Orchard, which includes constructing sewer improvements to the city standards. These improvements will be, excuse me, dedicated to the city once completed. The City Council approved earlier in agreement with the Kitsap Transit to handle the design and the permitting, with the Kitsap Transit reimbursing the city for the cost. The city sought qualified consultants for the sewer lift station design and selected Consor based on their qualifications. The consultant provided a project scope, budget, timeline, and proposal totaling $469,966. At this time, staff recommends council authorize this resolution. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hey, would someone like to make a motion? Councilmember Rosa Pepe.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a professional services agreement with Consor North America Incorporated for the design and permitting of the Ruby Creek Lift Station sewer project in the amount of $469,966.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Mhm.
Yeah, I have a question. I have a statement.
Yes, Councilmember Warden.
Trying to hit my raise my hand feature. Wasn't doing the best job on that. Apologize. I just didn't want to move on. So I'm just gonna read what I wrote so I stay on track. But I just want to start off with acknowledging previous council approved moving forward with the aspects of this project. I want to add my thoughts to it though. So moving forward, we really need to consider the impact that this has. The opening line in the staff report speaks volumes. Kitsap Transit is constructing a park and ride facility known as Ruby Creek Park and Ride. The city of Port Orchard is not in the business of land development. We are also not a bank for developers or anyone to fund their projects. Kitsap Transit is a local agency that has plenty of resources to design and develop their own sewer lift station, the same requirement that we'd put upon any other. Key words the city uses is lack of capacity. We use those words often. Kitsap Transit has built on Wheaton Way in a newly developed bridgetop without bankrolling from Bremerton or the county. Sewer ratepayers should not be fronting money for development, designing lift stations for development, or for, we're not in land development. In the staff report, it states, which must be designed and constructed to city standards and will be dedicated to the city once completed, approved, and accepted. But stepping back, all sewer lift stations must be designed to city standards. And by law, all sewer lift stations must meet and be dedicated to the local sewer municipality upon completion. Developers cannot manage their own sewer lift stations by law. The ILA in place is to design, permit, and possibly construct sewer lift station for Kitsap Transit and future commercial sites to utilize after they pay latecomer fees to Kitsap Transit. Kitsap Transit will also have commercial pads. Again, this is all development. I am not in favor of the city of Port Orchard being involved in land development and bankrolling any aspect of land development for Kitsap Transit or any developer. My vote will be no. I do not want to utilize public dollars for land development. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fenton.
Yeah, I was just curious that that the city is going to be a bank for Kitsap Transit to put you know, the station there. And so I like to, I don't understand that. And I thought early on we were at a work study, all of us, as the new council, all of us together, and we weren't in favor of this. And we talked about how that we aren't, the city isn't a land development. So I'm surprised this is still going forward.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Fenton. Next is Councilmember Rosa Pepe.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm going to cede my to Nick Bond first, and then I'll keep my hand raised.
Likewise.
Okay. Yes, Director Bond.
Yes, good evening. I just wanted to clarify, so the agreement that was passed in 2023 stipulated that the Kitsap Transit would pay the cost, the total cost of designing this facility, and we have procured a consultant and a design contract to complete the design within the amount stipulated in the interlocal agreement. So Kitsap Transit is paying for the design of this. The city is directing the design because Kitsap Transit does not have expertise in designing sewer lift stations. The interlocal agreement that we have does not address the construction of the lift station. Kitsap Transit intends to build this lift station at their cost as part of their park and ride project, but they're asking that we design it because we have the expertise and we know what we want in a sewer facility. We've done a few sewer lift station projects in recent years, most notably with McCormick Communities, and we've had real challenges when we've had outside engineers designing things for developers that are focusing on saving the developers money versus giving the city the facility that it needs. And so we're really in the driver's seat here in terms of making sure that we're getting the facility that we want without having to do a whole bunch of back and forth between the developer engineer and the city's design review engineer that we would have to hire to review Kitsap Transit's plans. And so the interlocal agreement does pay for the total cost of the project. There is no cost to the city, but it is the city paying Consort and Kitsap Transit reimbursing the city in accordance with the ILA. And I want to note that the project is listed in Chapter 7 of our comprehensive plan. It is a city-funded project, and so the city has identified the need to build a regional facility in the Ruby Creek Basin. This isn't just to serve one site. It's to serve McCormick East. It's to serve other development areas out towards Stetson Heights, and also to handle sewage along the frontage of Sydney Road in the Ruby Creek Basin. And so this is not serving one site, it's at the low point. We're also currently, we've constructed a portion of a new 10-inch sewer force main that runs in Sydney Road Southwest. The Pottery Avenue Road Reconstruction Project, we've built a portion of the sewer force main as part of that project, and then the other portion of the sewer force main will get constructed when we do the Sydney Road Southwest completes our Safe Routes to School project that is currently in design. And so we are designing a 10-inch force main that is going to this regional facility that Kitsap Transit has agreed to fund and build for us. And so that 10-inch force main is needed because we are out of capacity within this entire basin in our existing 6-inch force main. And so the Kitsap Transit project, them paying for design is coupled with our sewer force main project, which is to bring sewer capacity to this area where there's quite a substantial amount of developable land remaining in the city. I also wanted to mention that the existing development on Sydney Road Southwest, north of Albertsons, we have the complex that includes the Burger King and the Domino's Pizza, as well as one of those apartment complexes. Those facilities are all on private grinder pumps that are pumping directly into this existing 6-inch force main. And so our intent is to actually take those off of the 6-inch force main and into this new Ruby Creek South Lift Station. We've had a couple of failures where we've had either pumps fail or power outages. I don't recall what happened most recently, but I think within the last year, we had some major sewer issues where we had to tell an entire apartment complex basically to stop flushing the toilet so that this private facility could be repaired. And so this regional facility is actually going to solve a lot of those problems with these older private systems that probably today you wouldn't be able to approve them because the Department of Ecology doesn't allow new private sewer pump stations. But back in 2005, when these first went in, that sort of thing was allowed. And so we have private lift stations in the area that are pumping into a public force main, and it's sort of a ticking time bomb for the city. And so this is going to remedy some existing deficiencies as well as providing capacity going forward.
Thank you, Director Bond. Council members Rosa, Pepe, and Morrissey, I'm wondering if I could ask Ms. Archer to speak next. Would that be okay with you guys?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, Ms. Archer, you're up.
Thank you so much. Just really quickly, I do want to flag for council, there is no legal risk whatsoever with authorizing this to move forward. Because these types of partnerships with and among public agencies occur all the time. There are legal risks, some of which Nick touched on briefly a moment ago, but there are additional legal risks if we do not move forward with this. So before there's a vote, if council would like to have a discussion about those legal risks, we would want to go into an executive session to have that conversation. So just flagging that for you.
Point of order, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
I would request that we go into an executive session to discuss the legal risks prior to any further discussion on this agenda item.
Okay, Ms. Archer, is it up to me to decide if we do that or?
No, unfortunately, you have very little power as Mayor Pro Tem, as does the mayor. That would require a vote of the council to amend the agenda to go into an executive session.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, at this point in time, a point of order, I would like to amend the agenda to go into a executive session to discuss this business item.
Okay, and is there a second for this amendment?
I'll second for sake of discussion.
Okay, there is a motion and a second.
Point of order.
Yeah, yes, I'm sorry.
This is more just a question for Ms. Archer. Ms. Archer, there was a motion on the floor prior to this motion.
Yes. So you are allowed to enter into an executive session while a motion is pending. We obviously cannot take action on any motions while we're in that executive session, but it's not like a deposition where they say we can't take a break while a question's pending. You can absolutely go into executive session at this time.
Okay, so let's take a vote for how many are in favor of the amendment to go directly into executive session. Please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Okay.
kind of want to discuss a few more things right now before we
Okay,
go. into-
yeah, okay, and if you're against the motion to go into executive session right now, please raise your hand and say nay.
Nay. I just want,
Further discussion before we move as well.
I'm having problems counting. So I believe there are at least 2 yays. I'm gonna ask you individually if you can
Mhm.
tell me yay or nay. So Heidi, you're a nay?
Can we discuss before we move? Can we discuss the motion before we move
Oh,
to the vote?
yeah, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, Councilmember Morrissey.
Yeah, I know I have a few other questions that I don't think are related to any type of legal action, and I would like to work through that before. I agree. I think I want to go and have those questions answered from Ms. Archer, but I have a few, I think, unrelated. Just did we take into account, for instance, the cost of Mr. Bond creating this for us and the people is Kitsap Transit.
Okay, Councilmember Morrissey, I'm gonna say that you're saying no at this point. If that's accurate. And let's see, Councilmember Diener, you raised your hand. Are you a yay or nay?
I'm a yay for sake of discussion.
Okay, and Councilmember Borden, are you a yay or a nay? And we're voting on whether or not to go into.
I'd like to have an executive session to hear Mrs. Archer. Yes.
So you're a yes.
Yes.
Okay, and who else? Councilmember Trenari, are you a yay or nay?
I'm a yay for an executive session.
Okay, the yays have it. So we are going into an executive session. I believe we'll need a link.
I just sent a link. I just created a link.
Okay.
But
don't we get to
I'm not-
talk a little bit more before we go into that?
No.
We don't have any more questions?
There's no requirement that you take action immediately after we come out of the executive session. My recommendation was just an executive session before you take action. So you'll still have an opportunity for discussion when we come back for additional questions. Yeah, absolutely.
But your questions will be answered in the executive session itself.
Possibly.
Might, but then we have to be
in front of the public.
Yeah, then we can't.
I think
Point of
Then we
order,
can't
Mayor.
talk about it in public, no.
Okay,
Point
yes,
of order.
Councilmember Rosa Pepe.
A point of order, Mayor Pro Tem, to please call on council members before we step on each other.
Okay, yeah, I'm hearing many voices, and I believe what I am hearing is that there is a concern that what is discussed in executive session is only the legal risk and not other questions which they believe should not be exempt. I believe that is something that the city attorney will help us clarify. So at this point, I recommend that we move into the executive session. Should we say for 10 minutes?
Yeah, I believe 10 minutes should be adequate, and I'm happy to say the statute if that's helpful.
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, it would be RCW 423110 subpart 1 subpart I to discuss legal risks of a proposed action in 10 minutes, or excuse me, in 10 minutes time with action to follow as the remainder of your meeting will continue. And I just want to confirm, did folks receive that invite? I'm not seeing any.
Yes.
I
got
have to
it.
leave.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Is
See
it
you on
all
this
right?
side.
Okay,
Okay.
see you in the executive session.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, welcome back to our regular council meeting, where we continue to discuss item 7A. Let's see. We have a motion on the floor and a second. Are there any further comments or questions of council? Councilmember Morrissey?
Yeah, I've got a couple, so I'm going to try and do this in sequential order. So we talked about Kitsap Transit paying for this, right? And then we also talked about city staff working on that project because we're going to take over this project once it's complete, which I understand is the case for every pump station that is taken care of by a developer. Is that correct?
I can answer that. Yes, that is correct. Sewer pump stations are not allowed to be operated privately. A grinder pump is okay, but a pump station, we have direction from the Department of Ecology that we are not allowed to have private pump stations anymore.
Okay. So have we had staff capacity used for any other developer in the past for design? And I don't know if quite yet, because I think we're only talking about design at this point, or construction in the city of Port Orchard.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And whether it, McCormick Lift Station 1 and 2, we had to develop agreements for the developer to provide those, and we had to give technical specifications. We had to get scope from our consultant that we gave to the private developers consultant. It took a considerable amount of time. And as far as this basin goes, I mean, we've probably had 20 or so pre-application meetings with various developers over the years where we have to get into these details about the lack of sewer in this basin and what is required. I can remember I think it was 2016 or 2017, we got 5 property owners within the Ruby Creek Basin in a room together with their engineers trying to work out a solution and getting people to come together and solve the sewer problem in this basin. So we've spent hundreds of hours on this basin and sewer issues even prior to Kitsap Transit offering to do this project for us. And then we, since writing the agreement with Kitsap Transit in 2023, we spent time on that. We had to spend time procuring the consultant and going through pre-design. But once we set our consultant working on it, it's the consultant doing the work, and we're just reviewing the plans as they come in, sharing them with Kitsap Transit and providing feedback. It's actually not a ton of time from staff to get this done once we've given our consultant the instructions to go, especially because our consultant knows our sewer system very well, knows our specifications for lift stations, and we have a relationship where they know what to deliver for us and understand the expectations and can do a good job.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Had Stetson Heights needed that capacity, would we have done this same thing for that developer that we're doing today?
Yes, absolutely. And with Stetson Heights, we were really flying blind when that was approved by the hearing examiner. We had a memo that provided a couple of alternatives that turned out not to be feasible. And so we had to spend years after Stetson Heights was approved trying to figure out how to handle sewage from Stetson Heights. And ultimately, their engineer proposed some novel upgrades to the Albertsons lift station, which did not require the expansion of the footprint and which gave them just enough capacity. But that actually probably took more time because it was such a non-standard thing that we did to accommodate that development. And part of the problem is we didn't own any land for an expanded lift station. And so the city still doesn't have any land in Basin 7 for a facility. Kitsap Transit is willing to provide the land and provide the funding to build this facility, which then creates capacity in the basin.
Thank you. 2 last quick ones here. One, do we know that we keep calling this a partnership. Are we, the city of Port Orchard, being compensated for the staff time that we're using as part of this partnership?
I don't believe the agreement provides for any reimbursement of staff time. That is something that we sometimes do, but given the collaborative nature of this, we chose not to charge those fees when we pass the ILA.
Last question, Mr. Bond, and thank you. Sorry, it's kind of rapid fire here, but so this Ruby Creek lift station was on our plan for needing to be built in the future. We're bringing that forward. How long would we have until we would be out of compliance with the need to get that completed from today? How much more runway would we have if we weren't bringing this up today?
Well, I think there's a couple of different ways to look at that. And first, speaking from the Growth Management Act, we have a 20-year comprehensive plan for the city, and we're supposed to in that plan our capital facilities to accommodate our growth over a period of time. We annexed Basin 7, which includes the Ruby Creek Lift Station project, I believe in 2009 or 2010. And so our 20-year plan from 2010 should have included a financing plan to build this within 20 years. So I think that that by 2030 we are supposed to have implemented our plan, and sometimes we don't always succeed in doing everything we say we want to do within our plan, but we should have had a financing plan in place to make this happen. And with the agreement with Kitsap Transit, we are still on track to have a lift station built by the year 2030, which is 20 years after annexation, and would have been consistent with our 20-year planning horizon under the Growth Management Act.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Rosa Pepe, you had your hand raised.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. One is I appreciate the fact that we know that we have an issue with sewer capacity, at least processing it and getting it down to the Marina Pump Station, and that we need to get this done. This was certainly has been a long time coming. The fact that we have a partnership with a interlocal agreement with Kitsap Transit is not surprising, since they're working to build a park and ride there. And so it would just be in our best interest, since they're bringing money to the table, to move forward, much as any of the partnerships that we've done with other developers in the same vein. I know that we may talk about delaying this for more information, but quite frankly, the information has been in the packet, and we should be able to make a decision on this tonight. As we continue to delay, it only drives cost and construction up. When we talk about 2030, please, that's only 5 years away, and between design and construction, that's probably going to take all the time, as we've seen with other projects. So I will be a very fervent yes vote for this to move forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fenton.
Yes. Now, has Kitsap Transit ever done this with any other city, and any other city being their bank? That's one question. And then what does Kitsap Transit really get out of this deal besides a park and ride? Why would they, just because they get a park and ride, so they're going to build a pump station for us? And like I said before, I felt like we went over this at a workstation, but I wasn't 100%, on board with this. I wanted to learn some more. And then I know the comprehensive plan's coming up, and I feel like it's kind of rushed that we have to say yes or no tonight. I want to look at the whole comprehensive plan, because we don't have to say yes on that yet. We still have till the beginning of November or the end of November. So I want to know a little bit more. And who came to who? Did the city come to Kitsap Transit, or did Kitsap Transit come to the city? Who initiated all this?
Well, there's a lot of questions there. And in terms of characterizing this as a bank, I don't know that I would describe it that way. We have the ability to invoice Kitsap Transit prior to paying our consultant. And as long as Kitsap Transit, follows the agreement that they've signed, it's really just a pass-through cost on the project. In terms of what Kitsap Transit gets out of the deal, they do have restroom facilities planned for their park and ride. And so in order to have restroom facilities, there is no sewer at the site that they selected for the park and ride. The other thing is that the park and ride is within the Ruby Creek sub area, which that was a plan that we developed in 2020 for the development of this neighborhood. And when we zoned the property in the Ruby Creek Basin, we zoned the frontage south of Ruby Creek and north of Sedgwick is downtown mixed use along the frontage. And in that zone, park and rides are not allowed. You can only develop a park and ride in the center and east side of the property that they purchased. And so they have these remaining development pads along their frontage that also need sewer in order to develop. And so Kitsap Transit's calculation, I believe, is that they want to have they have to do all of the frontage improvements on Sydney Road for their park and ride. They're essentially going to have shovel-ready pads that they can sell to a developer, but they don't want to go in and rip up the park and ride and rip up the sidewalks for sewer improvements to be done after all of the sidewalk improvements have gone in. The underground utilities need to go in before the surface improvements on a site. And the pads that will be created, they already have water. They will have sewer, they'll have frontage improvements. They are valuable to Kitsap Transit and will be marketable because they are relatively turnkey to a developer in the event that Kitsap Transit is able to surplus that DMU zoned land to somebody to help execute our plan for the Ruby Creek Center. And so the benefit to them directly is that they're able to have the restroom facilities that they want for their park and ride. But the secondary benefit to them is that they have some of the land that they own is not zoned for park and ride and has to be developed commercially or with mixed use type buildings. And so they're going to have a hard time selling those because there is no sewer available to serve those lots. So this makes those properties more valuable and will be something that they can easily dispose of.
Oh, so they'll sell them for their profit.
They will sell them. I don't know that they're going to profit. They'll probably recoup their cost of building a sewer lift station and making some of the frontage improvements. But what the market is when they're able to sell, it's hard to say.
Thank you for that explanation. Councilmember Diener, you had your hand raised? You're muted.
Sorry about that. I'm gonna go ahead and say that I'm supportive of this. It's in our comprehensive plan. Heidi, I don't believe we ever talked about not moving forward on this. I think it's quite the opposite, but there have been reservations. I'm hopeful that many of those reservations have been addressed tonight. This is a relationship that is had with development. I did ask if John could provide examples of perhaps other Kitsap Transit or other transit agencies where something similar has occurred, but it didn't get a response.
Yeah.
But I think that staff has done a good job explaining the project and the risk and the benefits. So I'm going to go ahead and vote for it if it comes up to vote.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And yeah. Thank you, Councilmember Diener. Has any other city done this for Kitsap Transit? That was my question.
I don't know about Kitsap Transit, but certainly the Sound Transit expansion that's occurring in King, Snohomish, and Pierce counties, there is transit-oriented development going on all over the place where they're having to acquire transit station sites, and those are coupled with redevelopment. The nature of any specific deal I can't speak to, but I don't think that this sort of thing is uncommon.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Morrissey.
Thank you. I just had a quick clarifying question, Mr. Bond. Councilmember Rosepepe said something about Kitsap Transit bringing money to the table. I believe I heard you say something earlier that we pay for this project one way or another. Either we pay for it because we collect the fee from Kitsap Transit and the surrounding people who have developed it, or whoever comes in, if it's not Kitsap Transit behind it, will pay for it. And either we pay for it out of CFC dollars or we collect a fee and end up billing it ourselves. So either which way, we're paying for this. So we're not necessarily getting a favor out of that.
Correct. It's really a matter of timing, and our capital facility charge revenue from sewer capital facility charges, we call them general facility fees in our code. But this project is 100% funded by the fees that developers pay as they build houses in the city. There are about 10 or so projects that make up our capital facility charge. And so we are collecting money to build these as city projects. And whether transit fronts the money now to get this designed sooner so that they can build it, or we wait and build it using the money that we collect as more development occurs in the city. This is programmed as a city project, and transit is, I guess there's no more or no less work on the design side, but they're actually going to build it for us rather than us having to put a project out to bid and manage a construction project. It will be built by Kitsap Transit, which is a huge savings to the city in terms of staffing and just project management time.
Okay, so I guess I have a follow-up question to that. Based off of that answer, would you be fair to say that it would be, when we talk about this being a partnership, I'm hearing we pay for it either which way, and we're not getting credit for staff time, but the partnership may be characterized based off of us not having to oversee the construction of the project, and that's where we can see some cost savings. I want to see where the city benefits as well.
Yeah, and we will still do inspections as part of construction, but we're not managing the payments and the change orders and all the requests that come in, as you've seen with the Marina Lift Station. There's always constructability issues that come up that get managed by a project manager. We're only inspecting to verify that what was designed is what is being built, and that it's being built to meet engineering standards and codes. But in terms of how it gets built and who's managing the day-to-day construction, that's a much lighter lift for us if transit builds the facility.
And then your response there prompted one more. I apologize for being so lengthy. But change orders, for instance, right? So is this ILA also include that Kitsap Transit picks up that cost, overruns, things like that, change orders that we would normally see and have to approve? They absorb all those costs as well?
Well, we haven't gotten to an agreement on construction yet. Right now, we only have an agreement on the design. And so we're not expecting design change orders. We have a scope of work that is within the limit that was set in the interlocal agreement for cost. And so we have Consor, they've agreed to a contract to complete the design of the project within the budget that we have per our ILA with Kitsap Transit. If Consor came back and said it's going to cost more, we would probably tell Kitsap Transit, we need to amend the agreement to increase how much you're going to reimburse. And we would put any further work on the design on hold until Transit agrees to do that.
Okay, thank you, Ann. Councilmember Rosenpepe, you had...
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. One last comment, and I can't speak for whether Kitsap Transit has any ILAs with regarding building designing lift stations, but I can say with certainty, having been on the Kitsap Transit board, that ILAs, they have a multitude of ILAs with the other cities and the county for projects that they've had. So this is not new to them or foreign to them. Working with other cities, obviously, and it's not foreign for us to be working with other partnerships either. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further discussion or questions, I call for the vote, and we're voting to adopt a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Consor North America for the design and permitting of the Ruby Creek Sewer Lift Station project. All in favor, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay and raise your hand. Okay, it looks unanimous. So the motion passes. Okay, next we go to adoption of a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a commercial facilities contract with PSE for City Hall Improvement Project and ratifying all actions consistent with this authorization. Director Ryan, I believe this is your item.
Thank you. Good evening again. Before you use the resolution for a commercial facilities contract with Puget Sound Energy for the City Hall Improvement Project. This project requires the removal of existing three-phase overhead transformer and installation of overhead to underground conversion to primary line extension to meet the power requirements for the project. PSE has a utility provider for the region, is the sole vendor to provide necessary services and connections. PSE has provided the city with a commercial electric facilities contract that includes the design, construction costs for the required elements, improvements in the amount of $50,035.28. This cost was factored into the total project budget. Staff recommends that the council authorize this resolution as it is an essential component of the remodel project. And I'm available for any questions.
Would anyone like to make a motion? Councilmember Warden.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem, I'm unmuted. I'd like to move to adopt resolution authorizing the mayor's executive execution, I apologize, of a commercial electric facilities contract in the amount not to exceed $60,000 with Puget Sound Energy to design and install electrical infrastructure for the City Hall improvement project and to ratify all actions taken consistent with the authorization.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? No questions or comments? Okay, Mr. Trenari.
Yeah, this is a question in regards to this program. Does this include the PSE's update that will allow the city to sell back unused power from our grid to PSE or bank that unused power?
Can you hear me? I'm sorry. That conversion project is included with Lincoln Construction, the prime contractor's contract. I believe the amount for that line item was about $120,000, but again, that is factored into Lincoln's awarded contract.
Councilmember Warden.
Yeah, these are already part of the original bid, original scope of work. And we're only approving these because they exceed a certain dollar figure. Is that accurate?
That is correct. So this is a
Okay.
contract. I'm sorry.
No, sorry. Apologize.
Being over $50,000, it is required council approval.
Awesome. Thanks.
And Councilmember Morrissey.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to provide some additional insight into the solar question from Councilmember Trenari. As someone who has solar on his house, PSE actually will only give you credit within the calendar year. And so you will still have a bill. You don't get to sell back unlimited amounts of energy, just so that's completely transparent. It's a net metering and it resets once a year.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Ryan or Director Ryan. Is our solar system going to have batteries, or is any overage just going to be lost? Do you know?
I do not know. I apologize.
No worries. Like Mr. Morrissey, I also have a solar array, and in case of an outage, I lose anything that might be produced because I do not have a battery. All right. Are there any other further questions or comments? Seeing none, how many are in favor of the motion? Please raise your hand or say aye.
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 And opposed, say nay or raise your hand. The motion passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to item C, the adoption of a resolution approving a contract with DOH for a pre-construction loan for preliminary engineering and design for Well 7. Director Ryan again.
Thank you. So this is the resolution for the approval of the contract for the Well 7 redesign. I think this may have caused some confusion earlier. We heard number 7, so I think this is what maybe was sparking a memory. So Well 7 is located in our lower parking lot right outside of City Hall. It's one of our oldest existing wells. It is an artesian well. So this loan will provide for pre-design, which will redesign the basin and relocate it to a place where it'll be away from seawater, sea level rise. We do face salinity entering that cistern. And we also, we do have an ongoing issue with the sediment. So this loan is an amount of $510,000 for pre-construction under the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Trenary.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Temp, I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with the Washington State Department of Health, accepting the DWSRF construction loan in the amount of $510,000.
Second.
Okay, I didn't hear the second.
I will give that to I'll give that to Councilmember Morrissey.
Okay, thank you. It sounded garbled to me. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions on this item? Seeing none, I call for the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Everyone approved. Okay, it passes unanimously. And moving on to item D, adoption of a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a commercial facilities contract with PSE for the Melcher Pump Station Rehab Project. Director Ryan.
Thank you. This resolution is also with Puget Sound Energy. This is for the Melcher Pump Station. Resolution authorized a commercial facilities contract with PSE for the Melcher Pump Station Rehabilitation Project. This has been a priority for the city to rehab this project to extend its useful life by 50 additional years. The pump station, crucial for the city's pressure zones, is outdated, needs significant upgrades. The city secured funding through a loan from Washington State Public Works Board. After a compliant procurement process, a design consultant was contracted in May of 2022. The construction project is set to go out to bid this fall. PSE will handle the necessary electrical improvements, including removing an idle transformer bank, replacing a pole, and relocating a primary PSE transformer. The total amount for this is $43,728.48 with potential additional costs. The city will include these costs in total project budget. And I'm happy to answer any questions for this one.
Thank you. Councilmember Rosa Pepe.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I think there may be a Scrivener error in motion for consideration, but I move to recommend adoption of a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a commercial electric facilities contract with Puget Sound Energy to install and maintain electrical infrastructure for the Melcher Pump Station Rehabilitation Project.
Second.
Good motion. That's not what was written.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'd like to call for the vote. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Morrissey.
This is more of a statement, has nothing to do with this. I would like to maybe have on a future discussion, moving the amount that we have to authorize up to maybe 100,000. I don't know, we maybe need to look at it, but I think smaller things like this should be more in the purview of staff.
Okay, Ms. Archer.
Thank you. Just to advise the council, that's absolutely within the council's prerogative, and the document that you would need to amend is called the city's procurement policy. So that's where that threshold lives. So you're absolutely free to move that that threshold.
Thank you for that. And Councilmember Morrissey, you may wish to add that perhaps to the next Finance Committee meeting as a discussion item. Are there any other questions or comments on this motion? If not, I'd like to call for the vote. All in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay and raise your hand. It also looks unanimous. Thank you. So the next item is the approval of the September 17th, 2024 City Council Work Study Meeting Minutes. Would anyone like to make a motion? Councilmember Morrissey.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem, I move to accept the council member meeting minutes from the 17th as presented.
Seconded.
Thank you. And with a second by Councilmember Trenari, are there any questions or comments or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, I call for the vote. All in favor of approving the September 17th minutes, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. And I believe there's one abstention, Councilmember Diener.
Correct.
Okay. All right, moving on. Next, we have item F, which is item E from the consent agenda. It was adoption of a resolution authorizing the purchase of base stations, antennas, and first-year software for radio read meters from Ferguson Waterworks. And I believe that's Director Ryan.
Thank you. So just last meeting, we did approve the meters and the radio attachments for the AMI, which is the Advanced Metering Infrastructure project that we have been undertaking as a city. This is one of the final components needed. So this resolution is for the purchase of the census receiving units and the antennas. The total dollar amount is $148,666.30. Again, this technology is going to provide the city to pick up all accurate reads from the city. All residences, all businesses will be able to collect this data from City Hall. We will be able to do water shutoffs, water turn-ons from City Hall. We are already seeing, as we've implemented this and we're able to receive some of these reads remotely throughout town, we are taking days off of our monthly reads. So this is a cost savings for the city in the future, and it's going to increase our efficiency and help with staff team time, which is greatly needed. I'm happy to answer any additional questions that you may have for this. I do want to comment that there will be one final business item that will come in front of you, which will be for the contractor to install this equipment. We have to identify a contractor. There's only a certain limited pool that we can use because this is proprietary software. And so there is only a few authorized installers that can do this, but that is to come. But that will be the final piece. We have ordered all meters and radio receiving equipment up to this time to finish this project. Total completion, I believe we are nearing about 65% of the city is installed and ready to go. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Morrissey.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem, I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the purchase of base stations, antennas, and software for radio read meters from Ferguson Waterworks.
Second.
Thank you.
Cool.
And Councilmember Warden.
Yeah, do you hear me right now?
Yes.
Okay, I actually clicked off that. I apologize. Did I hear you correct that, Director, that this can actually turn their water off? The software programs can?
That is my understanding. I have not seen that. We don't have the system set up yet, but if somebody was moving, we will have the ability to control the meter remotely.
And do we have all the crazy good fast work you guys have been doing, getting all those meter electronics installed? Do we already have those on Cartograph also already uploaded? And
I can't speak for the water system. On my director's report, I was going to let everyone know that we go live next week in the sewer system, followed by the storm.
Didn't mean to spoil it. No, didn't mean to spoil it.
We're getting close. I don't know if we have meters built out in that system yet, but it's coming. This system is also integrated with our finance program, our financial software. So it will correlate with how they do business as well.
So if you were to use this program to software, let's say it could turn a valve and turn water off. Are we still doing the post a hanger on your door and whatnot and do the notifications and stuff first?
We're obligated to do that.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yep.
Because yeah, sounds great.
I think the biggest savings for time is new residents or somebody who pays a bill that's been shut off will be able to instantaneously turn their water on It'll reduce
Oh, I like
after
that.
hours. Yeah, after hour service calls that have to go
For
turn water
sure,
back on.
yeah.
So.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Councilmember Fenton.
Yeah, I was kind of curious, what does this base station look like and where's that at? And then it says the antenna in first year software. Does that mean the following year we put more money into software again, like every year?
Yes, there is an annual software fee. The antennas are going to go on. We have 2 reservoirs that we've identified. We did something called a prop study. Right now, we're guaranteed 90 to 95% of the coverage of the entire city. We may pick up 100%, but they won't guarantee anything above that first threshold. What they look like, I don't think they're any bigger than my laptop. I've only seen the cut sheet. I didn't pay attention to the spec. But the control panels will be in a secured city facility. The antennas will extend. They look like a CB antenna. They're no bigger than 10 feet tall on top of our reservoirs. So we've done this prop study. We pinpointed the peak locations throughout the city for coverage. Was that all the questions? I'm sorry.
Yeah, for
that
me.
one? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Interesting information. Councilmember Rosa Pepe?
Just real quickly, I think I'd heard, Eric, that one of the reasons for the on-off was also if, somebody was gone and they had a busted pipe, that they would be able to tell that. So I think this may be more dynamic than we realize, which would be a benefit to the community. So I'll keep my fingers crossed on that one.
I know John has his hand raised, but I want to respond back to you. I was just under the impression that these are valves. You know what I'm saying? In
Yep.
irrigation systems, though, right? I mean, they're different, and so I didn't know if it was like more to it to make that happen. But like Director said, being able to turn someone's water back on after hours or whatnot, that's huge. So,
yep.
Good point. Councilmember Morrissey.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Director Ryan, as great as technology can be, it also has me a little worried hearing just about what we're celebrating there, the ability to turn on and off water. Is this current program, and I can't think of the word off the top of my head, completely insulated from outside influence, meaning it's not connected to the internet? What happens when we get hacked and our water gets turned off?
So this is a radio frequency, so it's not internet based. I've had conversations. There's been some time about the security. We will have the ability to turn it off. We control the network. We will have our own authorized radio signal. There's some additional information I can bring back to the council. We did have this conversations, but it's been some time, so I apologize.
Okay, and then my next question around that's probably directed at Ms. Archer. Ms. Archer, I don't know that I've seen, we probably have one, but an IT policy related to that and a due diligence program that we would have undergone before entering into contract.
As it relates to the potential breach of technology, I'm not sure if there's a specific IT policy related to this new software yet. I anticipate that we would be rolling one out, but more generally, yes. In the Public Records Act, there's actually a statutory clause related to the protections we are required to have in place with regards to the information we gather about our customers. And the city has incorporated that into its own policies and practices, including methods of preventing hacking, for lack of a better, or for a more educated term. I don't really know what the exact process is, and as well as public notification in the event something is taken or information is accessed. So yes, in short answer, there is a policy, and in applying it to this new software will require additional work to integrate the two.
Thank you.
I would just like to add that I share Councilmember Morrissey's concern for security. And I'd just like to remind people that there are other cities with wealthier residents with less security, perhaps, than we have. I believe we have a very secure system. Are there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I call for the vote. All in favor of this motion, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 And any opposed, same sign. Okay, looks like it passes unanimously. And our last business item is the approval of an interlocal grant agreement with the Washington State Traffic Safety Commission for high visibility safety emphasis patrols. And I believe this will be Deputy Chief Brandon.
Yeah, sorry about that. This is from Washington State, where local areas here in Kitsap County, we have it where we can do traffic emphasis for different reasons: DUI, speeding, seatbelts. And so the region chooses different reasons to run these traffic emphasis. And so this is just to participate once again in the grant, us contribute to that grant process to allow us to continue in these processes to effectively work in our community.
And
Thank you, Councilmember Trenari.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to authorize the mayor to sign an interlocal agreement between the city and the Washington Traffic Safety Commission.
Second.
Thank you. With a motion and a second, Councilmember Fenton, did you have a question?
yeah, no, I mean, this sounds great. Now with this for the speeding and everything that you said, Deputy Chief, is this also going to help with the speeding downtown? Will you guys be able to, because we've had quite a few neighbors. I've already heard from 5 different people, literally within the last about 2 weeks, with the noise ordinance and speeding and all that kind of stuff. Will this also help with that situation?
It can. They are located in different areas throughout the county. So not always is it specific just to Port Orchard that they'd have us work. They focus on different areas. So sometimes we're here in Port Orchard, sometimes we're up in the North County. But when we're working these different areas, it brings in the resources from all over the place to work too. So it's not just Port Orchard in the South End. It's also Bremerton, Poulsbo, Bainbridge, any of the agencies that choose to participate in that day's events. So it can be located all throughout the county through it. So it could assist in that process. But there's generally an emphasis reason, which is more safety reasons. So speed, seatbelt, DUIs, things along those lines that are the emphasis.
Is the grant shared by everybody then?
Anybody that chooses to participate.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Good question. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I call for the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 It passes unanimously. Okay, now we're on to our first discussion, or our only discussion item, which is vacant commercial property. And that's going to be led by our Ms. Archer.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Council members, before you this evening for discussion is the topic of vacant commercial properties and the mechanisms that various agencies across the state of Washington utilize to deal with some of the negative consequences of vacant commercial properties that are left in disrepair and in other negative conditions. The impetus for this conversation, you'll recall, is found in I believe in your legislative priorities, which is the idea that there is no mechanism by which public agencies currently can tax or otherwise monetarily penalize the properties that choose not to redevelop. And that is a legislative priority that a number of agencies in Washington are positing for the state legislature, as the taxing authority does not permit for that. But there are, short of a tax, there are other methods that agencies across Washington are using to combat the negative impacts that sometimes vacant buildings can have on your communities. And this activity is often thought of as an exercise of your police power, little p, not big P, police power, which is your constitutional powers to protect public health, safety, and welfare, pursuant to the Constitution at Article 11, Section 11. I want to start by saying what we are already doing so we can orient the conversation based off of that, and then talk about some of the options that we've seen in other agencies. This is by no means an exhaustive list of the different things that agencies in Washington are doing. This merely hits some of the high points that I have seen and that MRSC has gathered as sort of sample examples rather of what agencies have successfully done to combat those issues. So first, what are we currently doing? So as you recall, your city has a very robust code enforcement team. You just recently appointed an assistant code enforcement officer, or a second code enforcement officer, and you have a primary code enforcement officer that's been with the city for a number of years. And they both, as a team, are doing an excellent job pursuing derelict buildings, both in the commercial sense and in the residential sense. As it relates to commercial properties, for legal risk reasons, I can't go into details about specific code enforcement cases, but we do have active code enforcement cases with regards to the negligent maintenance of vacant buildings, which is often one of the problems we see with vacant commercial properties. Buildings that are left in disrepair, the windows may be boarded up, but those boards are torn down and vagrants are allowed to access those buildings. And so when we, as the majority of cities are, your code enforcement program is based on complaints, is complaint driven. And so when a complaint comes in, your code enforcement officer investigates it and action is taken as it relates to the condition that's observed, or in other circumstances, the improper or unlawful use of the building for a purpose that's not currently zoned. So the limitations of that approach are that it doesn't address any aspect of motivating or otherwise encouraging redevelopment. That is not something that code enforcement is designed for, nor can it be used as a tool to encourage redevelopment or otherwise encourage folks from selling their property. That is an improper purpose for code enforcement. Rather, it is to restore the structure, restore the property to a condition that does not present a nuisance to the community. So for example, I've often received the question, well, this building has had a number of transient individuals break in and use it for squatting purposes. Why can't we ask the court to give us an order to tear that building down? Typically, we are unable to go that far, and a court is unlikely to grant us the ability to actually remove a structure for code enforcement mechanisms. So the best we are able to get through the code enforcement toolbox is an order to secure the building. So that's why you see in some communities buildings that are secured, because that is the extent of the property rights that the court is willing to allow us to impede upon. So we will board up the building. And one of the options that other agencies have utilized that we will talk about tonight is that there are ways to make boarding up structures more aesthetically pleasing to the community. So I believe the city of Everett, and there's at least one other city that have included in their code enforcement toolbox, when you are boarding up a structure in a commercially visible area, the boards used or the security measures used must feature, thank you for scrolling, Brandy, must use art or must feature art or some sort of image rather than just a blank board, some sort of image that is more aesthetically pleasing to the community. And that is one of the aspects or the options that we will talk about in a moment. But to close up on this first topic, and I do see a question, so I will pause to take that question. But just to close up on this portion of the conversation, your code enforcement team currently enforces the nuisance provisions of your code, as well as Title 20 aspects of the building, whether it's building safety or zoning. And that is the currently funded mechanism for dealing with vacant properties in your city. And I'll pause there.
Councilmember Diener, I see you have a hand
Yeah,
raised.
so Charlie, I'm content to let you work through alternative number 2, because that's where my questions lie with.
Okay. All right. Happy to continue on then. So now that we've contextualized what we currently do and what we've currently funded as an agency, let's talk about some of the other programs that the cities in Washington or the agencies in Washington have attempted to utilize. The first program I want to immediately caveat is and can be an expensive program to implement. All of these potential programs have a significant cost to the city, but any program where there is a registration, inspection, and enforcement arm, those have a significant cost. City of Tukwila, for example, has a registration program for residential tenants and residential landlord-tenant situations in order to ensure that residential spaces are meeting building code, so they have ingress egress. That program alone requires at least one dedicated staff person and potentially another to support that program. So the registration and inspection programs have a cost. Similarly, Island County, Washington has a program where they are monitoring short-term rentals in order to ensure that short-term rentals are not operating without approval. That program requires a dedicated staff person. So as you're entering your budget conversations, I want to provide that context for all of these options because they do not come without their significant costs. So the first is the concept of a vacant building registration and inspection program. And I have worked with agencies where they have a vacant residential building registration program. And there are others that have it in the commercial context as well. City of Seattle, for example, obviously has a larger pool of resources, has a vacant building registration and inspection program where the buildings are actually registered with the city. And the city has a vacant building monitoring program, and they charge a monthly inspection fee for those inspections to occur. And they have staff dedicated to sweeping all of the registered vacant properties, and then sweeping the non-registered vacant properties to ensure that they are registered. And then ensuring that all those vacant buildings are secured and maintained to prevent unauthorized entry and deterioration. So again, the code enforcement tool that we have to ensure that these buildings are not being used for nuisance or unlawful purposes, even under the Seattle registration program, the punchline is they are verifying that your building is secured from transient or from infiltration. They're not requiring that you use that building for a particular purpose, nor could they. They're merely making sure that your building is not blight to the city. Similarly, City of Everett enacted a program specific to vacant commercial space, and they have an annual associated fee depending on square footage from $250 to $1,000 a month. As a component of that program, this is where I get to the use of art. Again, Everett's, the sort of stick they have with their carrot program of registration is we will require that you board up your building and make sure it can't be infiltrated. But they've taken a step further and required that those boards be visually appealing to the community. And the city of Aberdeen adopted the identical program as Everett with regards to having visually appealing boards. Then the second sort of general option or area for additional enforcement, this is tied directly with your code enforcement, but because the more you enact as far as regulations, the more expectations you have for staff, there is a significant cost associated with it. Just want to make sure that that nexus is communicated. Some cities utilize building code local amendments to enact local requirements for vacant structures that encourage redevelopment. So identifying vacant structures with associated deterioration as public nuisance properties, expanding the definition of a public nuisance, and then taking action to quickly authorize nuisance abatement procedures. I don't believe it with this current council. We have come to you asking for you to authorize us to move forward with a nuisance abatement proceeding, but for council members who have been on the council longer, there are times when we will come to you and ask you to authorize us to take legal action against a property owner for nuisance abatement. That's typically where it's very, very egregious. But some cities have adopted additional sort of heightened building code requirements and tied that to public nuisance. For example, City of Spokane adopted a local amendment to the building code And you'll recall that all local amendments to the building code that are more restrictive or less restrictive than the building code must be approved by the state. That classifies a boarded up building and defined it as a closed or boarded up building for at least 1 year, and then tied that defined thing as an unfit building, and then gives the building official vested authority to require demolition of unfit buildings. My understanding is that from a legal risk perspective, this code has not been challenged. I also don't know how often this code has been enforced. And if this council were interested, I'd be happy to talk to the Spokane City Attorney and find out more information about their implementation of that program. But it is on the books. It does exist. City of Linwood has a similar, more broad definition of nuisance to include vacant, unused, or unoccupied buildings that have not been properly secured. And that is tied more to the proper securement or security aspect of that. So you currently, under your nuisance code, there's a nexus with properties that are causing there to be ongoing criminal activity. Something similar to this as well is a chronic nuisance ordinance that some agencies have adopted, where if there are multiple calls for fire and police services to a particular location due to criminal activity at that property, you can then declare the property to be a chronic nuisance location and then have additional heightened consequences for the property owner as well. Those are highly litigated and highly challenged because they do have serious consequences to property rights. So I speak to those generally, and I don't dive into those legal risks in an open meeting, but to the extent this number 2 were garnering interest, I would be happy to talk about that more. And so I'll pause there for you, Councilmember Diener.
Okay, so I brought this to the table as a retreat item about a building downtown that has sat vacant for, I think, 12 years now. We didn't get any traction. We tried, as I recall, I heard that for a couple years we tried, and the landowner was basically somewhat silent on moving anything forward with respect to that building. And at some point, I think we've got to consider what is best for the community, especially if we're trying to improve and rehab our imaging downtown. And so I'm really keen on learning more about the city of Spokane and what they've done there. I would like to proceed that with an opportunity for a development agreement, so that it's not 1 year and there you go, but it's 1 year to get a development agreement underway, or at least to have an application taken as complete for a development agreement. But I'm wanting to see some action happen with that building downtown. It's a cornerstone. Well, it used to be a cornerstone of activity downtown. But now it's kind of, people don't even notice it anymore, but it has the potential to really anchor downtown, depending on what it turns into. So I'm interested in understanding more about the city of Spokane's program and any risks associated with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Warden, did you have a question or comment?
Thank you, Miss Archer. We asked you to put this together for us, and you definitely did. That's a lot of work. Thank you. Definitely, after that last meeting, when I got really frustrated, I'll do better. I definitely am sensitive when it comes to the appearance of the city. Very frustrating to me. And it's really frustrating to me because it's frustrating to a lot of people. And I wear it. But I'm really curious if there's not a way to enforce. Maybe we need to look at a way to incentivize. And not sure what that what that means when we don't really get a lot of property tax. We don't get a lot, there's a lot of different things that we don't really receive a lot of in the city, small portions. But there's a way that we could start looking at properties, commercial, not residential, and just try to find ways that we can incentivize them to do better. Because if we don't have a leg to stand on with a lot of this, and it could cost us a lot, court battles and this and that and your time, maybe there's ways that we can look at things to incentivize. Also, I was curious, and I think you answered it. I was actually probably writing when you answered it. But is there a way for council to know which properties that you're actively going after, or I hate using that word, actively maybe holding a conversation with? Is there a way for us to know that, or is that more departments and that's in the weeds type thing?
That's a great question. So typically we do not have conversations about that on the record. I think there are opportunities. So as council members, you are entitled to access information and data through the mayor and staff that you need to take action. And so if you, for example, wanted information specific to your own home property, that would not be information that you'd be able to get through the channels that you have access to as a council member. But to the extent that information is relevant to your evaluation of the various tools to deal with vacant properties, I think that there historically have been opportunities where there were presentations by code enforcement staff. Maybe Mr. Bond can speak to this. I may be conflating cities, but I know I've observed those in other jurisdictions where they'll speak to sort of, here are the highlights of the properties that we're working on, so that you can share that information with your constituents. Because I imagine this is, as you've mentioned, an issue that you get a lot of comment on. How do this property over here is dangerous, how do we deal with that? So I think historically maybe there have been those briefings here, or that's something that that if the council were interested, that could be implemented.
Thank you. Let's see, Councilmember Rose. Nick, did you have a response to that?
Well, I was just going to say, I think one piece of information that could be made available through the mayor would be to just provide the council with a report of open code enforcement cases generally, but not all of those are going to be dangerous buildings or nuisance abatement type cases. There's a lot of things that are construction without permits and other things that code enforcement does. With that said, I think it would be possible to do some sort of presentation maybe annually from code enforcement on the work that they're doing. But I will say that we just finally filled our vacant code enforcement position, so we're back up to our full staffing of 2 officers, but they have a pretty huge workload. And so I think that's the other part of the conversation here. With any type of program like this that we would want to initiate is going to require staff resources, and it's going to take away from other things that we've prioritized. And I don't know. I mean, if we're targeting 1 or 2 properties, maybe that's possible within existing staff resources. But I think if we implement a program like this, it's something that we have to treat everybody the same. And there could be quite a few cases, and it's going to either mean that we do less of something else, or that we're adding staff to code enforcement. And so along the lines of asking staff to put together a presentation for council, they're so behind on cases right now from having a vacancy that it would be hard to make that happen in any expedient amount of time.
Yeah, I wasn't for sure. I don't want a presentation, just possibly I don't know, an email, maybe like a monthly email or something of just what properties, in case someone, which they will, they bring it up. But then again, if they bring it up, it's a legal matter. We're not going to turn around and say that we're actively pursuing them, because then we're discussing a legal matter. So it's kind of tricky. Maybe I don't want to know about what's going on.
I can talk to the mayor about a report that could be made available to council members periodically. It's pretty easy to automate the report through our system. But if you don't see something from me in the next couple of days, feel free to remind me with an email.
Nick, you may recall, I'm sorry to jump the queue. You may recall years ago, we used to have something like that. And maybe it was around budget because of the budget implications at the time. And this was when we were establishing a greater amount to code compliance as a budget. So it's been a while.
I would echo that, that we did previously get code enforcement reports. It was at a planner, maybe a couple before you, Nick, and we got them more frequently than we needed. But perhaps a quarterly or an annual version of the open cases would be very helpful. Okay, and I guess next, Councilmember Rosa Pepe.
And just for expediency's sake, is this something that the council would like to refer to land use, take a look at, and then bring back to the whole council with some recommendations? Obviously, there's some financial implications that, as the finance committee is meeting, when we start always talking about budgets, but talking basically on what Charlie's presented, is this something that we'd like to bring back to the land use, have a discussion, and then bring forward back to the council, either during the work study or one of our next meetings in the next couple of months?
If I can, sorry, John, can I take a question here or ask a question? So it would be worthwhile, I think, Jay. I think that's a great idea, but I think we might want to know of the menu of alternatives, what is it that council members are interested? Are they interested in playing nice and seeing if we can get something to happen in the next couple of years, or are they interested in doing something today? Because there's a lot of alternatives here and some that could blend together. And so I think it'd be good to have kind of a sense for what the council is desiring. And how we do that, I think, is another question.
Councilmember Morrissey, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm kind of along the same vein as Councilmember Diener there. I was going to have some follow-up questions on, while we may not have a registry or I think there was another word associated with this that keeps track of a list of potentially nuisance or nuisance properties, vacant properties, both commercial and residential. I don't believe we currently keep a record of that, or at least not an official record, right? I would be curious on if we kept a unofficial record that we could then do some type of pro forma, right? So if we're looking at option one there, a pro forma, at $500 a pop a month, you might be able to afford an additional staff member if there's enough properties to be inspected or whatever we went that way. And then same thing I would say with the potential utility fee for vacant properties. I'd need to know more about what it is that I can't say that we have an official inventory, but a guesstimate of an inventory and what those financial impacts may or may not be. So I would like some more information, I guess is what I'm trying to say, to be able to guide which way I would like to go, kind of what Councilmember Diener was referring to.
Okay. Councilmember Diener, you had your hand raised again?
Yeah, but I'll let Mark go first.
Okay. Mr. Trenari.
Well, I'd just like to echo on what Councilmember Morrissey said. I think it's important that we actually look at some sort of a listing as to what are the numbers that we're working with here. How, what total number of units, be it buildings. We all know the one that Councilmember Diener is talking about. Unfortunately, it's sat far too long, and it has been detrimental to our city. But besides that particular building, how many other buildings and properties are we talking about here? I think that's important to have before we get too far into what options we have. Let's see the numbers behind it first. Thank you.
John, do you still have your hand up?
No, sorry.
Okay. And Mr. Diener, Scott.
So, Charlie, thank you for this information. This is really good. Each time I look at a different section, I have different ideas. But you had mentioned that that when under alternative number 2, that when you go through that process, that the state has got to approve that through its ICC. Is that right?
So local amendments to the state building code that are less restrictive than state law require approval from the building code council before you can, before they're allowed to be effective. And I just add that I don't know if that necessarily matters in Spokane situation. it is I don't know if that's a more restrictive, less restrictive take. So I just flag that approval process is required for certain amendments, local amendments.
And do they do a risk analysis when they approve these to see what risk they're put at by approving these? I'm wondering if that approach gives us some protection in terms of risk analysis.
So without getting too deep into legal risk,
Right.
their approval of a local amendment, the Building Code Council has no liability associated with the adoption of any local amendments, the state
Okay.
building code, they've adequately disclaimed any liability associated with those
Okay.
amendments. So I would say there would not be a way to defer or otherwise deflect liability through that process. And the
Okay, thank you.
sorry, go ahead.
I just said thank you.
Oh, okay. The liability that I'm dancing around with regards to this process that Spokane utilizes, and I'll get more details from the city attorney of Spokane, but that has to do more with actions by the individual property owner associated with demolition and the loss of that property, right? My guess is, my educated guess is that while the building official is vested under their code to require demolition, following a public hearing process, they still go to Superior Court and get an order. That would be my guess. So it's still akin to a nuisance abatement action that all cities have as a tool, which you do as well.
Okay. Interesting.
Councilmember Warden.
Yeah, I don't want to continue to beat this one to death, but I can think of 5 properties right now, that are for sure of concern. I mean, the latest one is Jack in the Box right now is all plywood. So that's kind of a candidate on the list right here of ones that, you may require them to secure it differently. If you're going to be vacant, you're going to secure it differently than wrapping your now vacant restaurant in plywood. So I do like reading, and hearing all these different options. And hopefully there's some more as well that would might be more encouraging for them to do it as well. So thank you for providing all of this. Appreciate it.
No further questions. I would like to request that Ms. Archer continue with the other items in her list.
Yeah, happy to touch on those. And the third one is just that utility fee that we've talked about a bit. City of Sequim charges a monthly standby fee for infrastructure without an active account. So standby fee is essentially designed to target vacant properties and the costs associated with a leak that is undetectable since no one's there to see it. So that's one option that the city of Sequim has utilized. At least it's adopted by code. Again, I'm not sure to what level they've had success. And then options 4, 5, and 6, we sort of transition to what Councilmember Warden mentioned as incentivizing as opposed to penalizing. The city of Yakima has created a tax incentive program for new and rehabilitated multiple unit dwellings in urban centers. So that is focused on residential development of multi-unit housing in the city's urban centers. Those tax incentive programs obviously are very complicated and come with a lot of legal risk, but that's at least one example of a very targeted tax incentive program that a city in Washington has utilized. They are commonly more successful in the residential context because we are meeting that need to build affordable and residential housing, or obviously. Then number 5, public-private partnerships, which I should have mentioned this at the top. This is another thing that you are currently doing. Your community event center is a collaboration with other regional and public agency partners to reimagine your downtown corridor. Other cities who have had success in this method of encouraging redevelopment through the expenditure of public funds are usually larger in scale. So I think a more comparably sized one would be the city of Sammamish partnered with the YMCA to fund the construction of the currently operating Sammamish Community and Aquatic Center. And then YMCA manages that facility under a contract with the city, while the city paid for the construction of that facility. You often see this with the development and redevelopment of large scale athletic facilities. So the Key Arena, now Climate Change, would be considered a public-private partnership. Some of the other athletic facilities as well. This is obviously one of the most costly of all the options because it does require that you are partnering with other organizations or other entities who are interested in redevelopment. And again, it comes with a lot of legal risk because we are not in the business of investing in private development. But when development is publicly benefited, that's when these sorts of instances come into play. So the Community and Aquatic Center, for example, while it is one rate for YMCA members, there's also a rate for all community members, or there's times when all community members can access the facility. There has to be that public benefit, or there's a potential legal risk associated with it. And then actually, I guess 6 is the most expensive. This would be purchasing properties for public purpose. So this would be the city funding the purchase of vacant properties and utilizing its purchasing power to redevelop vacant parcels. As we've discussed in the past, you are prescribed both constitutionally and statutorily to use your funds for a public purpose. And so in order to buy property, you have to identify the public purpose for which you are acquiring. So, for example, we could not, as a city, purchase real estate, residential real estate, knowing that the market is hot, and then turn around and resell it. There's no public purpose that authorizes us to speculate as it relates to the real estate market. Even though there would be a public benefit, there would be clearly a profit. We are constitutionally prohibited from engaging in that type of spending. But if there were a reason that the city wanted to acquire a vacant property at a commercially reasonable rate, you could do so. So those are the incentive programs that I've identified. There's obviously a wide variety of incentivizing programs, partnerships with your Chamber of Commerce, partnerships with other public agencies. But I did want to flag that there are 2 sides to this, as Councilmember Warden points out, both sort of pursuing these activities from a regulatory perspective, but also then incentivizing redevelopment. Because as I've mentioned, even under our more punitive even if we exercise our more punitive toolbox, the ultimate outcome is typically we can get the building secured. We can't get the building demolished. And with the goal of redevelopment, that is somewhat counterproductive to that. So I think both together in harmony are useful. So I'll pause there. I think I understood the directive from council this evening. It sounds like the council, whether you'd like me to bring this information back here or to the land use committee, I'll wait to hear further direction. But I think there's interest in better understanding the local amendments to building codes under item 2. And then more generally understanding whether registration and enhanced code enforcement efforts could potentially be self-sustaining with regards to the costs and the cost to administer versus the fines and the fees that are charged. And embedded in all of that is a better understanding. The council would like a better understanding of the current roster of vacant properties present in your vacant commercial properties present in your city. I would suggest we look at those with multiple different lenses, because there are vacant properties that are sitting without presenting a nuisance, and then there are vacant properties that are presenting a nuisance. But I can give you those numbers as well, to the extent that benefits you. I can try to give you those numbers. I can't guarantee that anyone is surveying that, but I can do my best.
Excuse me, Councilmember Diener.
Yeah, I just also wanted to point out sort of the dynamic where we said to the building owner downtown that, look, you've got to board up your windows, you've got to make the building secure, and they did a good job. And so then, well, many years later, I think we'd be saying, well, that wasn't good enough.
Right.
So we would have to understand what that conflict could look like.
Absolutely. All right.
Well, thank you for the list. Are there any other
Yeah,
comments?
thank you.
It's given a lot of food for thought. I don't have a solution at this point, but I would say that I am inclined to believe that the incentives would probably work better than the enforcement aspect, because as Scott has said, we've probably signaled that what we're unhappy with, and it hasn't really resulted in what we want, especially with this cornerstone building. Okay, let's see.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I don't know if we decided what we want to do. Did we want to come back to the full council with more information or take it straight to land use?
Mr. Warden?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Dennis has so much on his plate. I couldn't imagine us discussing it in land use. It's pretty important, but maybe I don't know, maybe in a couple months. But I think time wise, it's kind of rough. What do you think? Dennis, what do you think?
Actually, I believe it would be under Nick's department.
I meant Nick. I apologize.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I agree. I think this is a difficult thing to take on at the committee level right now as we're trying to wrap up the comprehensive plan. And then we also have all of the middle housing deadlines, June 30th of next year. I think maybe towards spring of 2025, we could start this conversation again, but we've got some pretty major things to get done in the next 2 or 3 months for sure on the comp plan, and then 9 months for the rest of the regulations that we have to update.
Could we turn it into does it have to go through a committee before it goes to a work study? Is that the process?
I don't think so.
Nope.
It doesn't,
nope.
it can stay at the council at work study, but I think that would be just working with Charlie on refining whatever it is that you want to have go forward.
Yeah, I just couldn't imagine swamping you more right now. It's like swamping Scott at work right now. But I don't want to wait till next summer to jump on it. So just time wise, you professionals can figure it out. I just want to mention that being on land use, I think is important, but time wise, we have bad timing right now.
Okay, Councilmember Morrissey.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I might say that there's several committees that should bring this up as a topic of conversation. I think economic development, there's an impact there. Obviously, I asked for more information for a finance discussion as well. So I'm not sure that my answer gives Ms. Archer any more direction than when she started, other than I think you've given us a great base to start conversations with. And I think we owe it to you and to the staff to at least narrow it down to hopefully 2 directions to go to and flush out. But I don't know that I could say right off the top of my head without further conversation, engagement with the public as well, which 2 those would be. So I might throw out there making it a topic of conversation for all. Providing some feedback and then bringing it back to a study session. My 2 cents.
Okay, Councilmember Fenton.
Yeah, my 2 cents is keep it in the city council and at a work study.
And Councilmember Diener.
And I just was thinking, because there might be some alternatives that different council members want to explore. If maybe people could just send Charlie a note about which alternatives they would like more information on, then that might leave some that are kind of near the end of the pack, but we could start talking about those that people feel are the most important.
Yeah, that works. And then I'll mention to the mayor, we'll try to program this for our work study once we're past the already full work study sessions you have coming up on the budget and comp plan, but we won't let it drop for sure.
Sounds good. Okay, so our next item is, let's see, reports of council committees. And for some reason, our committees are on page 221. Brandy, I'm not sure why it's buried in the packet this way instead of being on page 4. But be that as it may, The next Economic Development and Tourism Committee looks like it's going to be Monday at 9:30. And utilities, did you guys meet last week and do you have anything to report?
Well, actually, today would be the meeting date.
Okay.
And actually, we had no meeting. We met at and toured the Marina Pump Station and got an update on that from Dennis and his team. It was very enlightening, and it still remains on schedule, and a lot of work yet to go. So thanks for all the council members that came down and took a look.
Thank you for hosting that. Looks like finance meets next Tuesday at 3. Transportation the week after at 4:30. Then land use October 16th. Lodging tax, do you have anything to report since our last council meeting?
So I wasn't present at the last council meeting, so I'm not sure if City Clerk Wallace provided any information. So I'm just going to give a quick 2 cents. We met on Friday, September 20th for our first meeting. RFPs are out currently for lodging tax. We have a due date, and our next meeting will be conduct our interviews, which is set for October 30th. Based off of how that goes, we also have a secondary date set for final deliberation on November 20th to be adopted by the end of the year.
Thank you. Sewer Advisory, did you guys meet today?
We did meet today. We had a good meeting discussing the budget of the facility upcoming. It'll be it's PDF'd, and we'll send it to Brandy tomorrow for dissemination to full council. We're going to meet in a couple weeks to kind of give it a one more once over with thumbs up before they take it to their board, and council will be weighing in on it probably next month. Good budget. One area of concern that was discussed is and I may need some help here from either Heidi or Eric. They are still waiting for their permit. And it's operating permit from DOE, and that has some concern only because of the fact that it was they were supposed to turn it around, and they haven't gotten it yet, and so they've asked, and it's been silent, so they don't know what that means, but they're not that concerned about it. It was just brought up today.
Yeah, it's their NPDES permit.
Yes, and
Yeah,
thank you.
It's taken a bit, yeah.
Yeah, so that's it.
Thank you. Any outside agency committees?
Mayor Pro Tem, I don't know, and both the mayor and I both sit on KEDA, but I just thought I'd bring it up. I don't know if he brought it up at the last meeting because I wasn't present, but KEDA recently had a meeting at which we discussed at length the need for some additional training for governmental employees. Particularly, we were talking about some hiccups and delays in the permitting process and things like that that are very kind of specialized type roles. And so we may want to look at amending our legislative priorities to the state to see if we want to help be in that charge moving forward. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. That's very interesting. Are there any other outside agency committee reports? Okay, there is no report of the mayor, who is at a meeting in Chelan. I'm sure we will hear from him in a week or two. And let's see, next department heads. I'm going to grab the ones that I see first on screen. So Mr. Ryan, do you have anything to report?
Thank you. Just a few brief items. City Hall Council Chamber, I heard it spoke of earlier tonight. So there is a slight delay in the installation of the lighting. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So we did have a slight delay in the lighting with the contractor. That is going to be completed early the week, next week, the week of the 14th through the 18th. Our move-in date and the IT connection is slated for next Friday, a week from this Friday on 10/17. So we will not be in there for the study session, but all is tracking to be in there for the next council meeting.
But-
Just
Sorry, by the 22nd.
correct. That's the plan.
Great. Okay.
And just to follow up, I will have information on the batteries for City Hall on the solar if we have the storage.
Oh, great.
Email.
Thank you.
council. And then the follow-up question on the AMI security. I will try to decipher Sean's email to me earlier. It's a bit technical, but AMI secure system. This is from our IT manager, Sean. The hourly read data is transmitted from the meter register to the collector, and then on the hosted server, it is secured by 128 AES encryption. No customer information is transmitted. I did read the 128 AES is the federal government adopted standard for encryption for these type of signals. So that's what I have for you tonight.
Thank you. And Director Bond?
Yeah, I have 3 announcements this evening. First, we opened the public hearing at the Planning Commission on the comprehensive plan last Tuesday. We did have a couple of people provide testimony, and we're making some very minor revisions based on some of the testimony that was received. We are hopeful that the Planning Commission will be making their recommendation at a Planning Commission meeting on October 29th, and that will allow the handoff of that body of work from the Planning Commission to the City Council. And so we're planning for a November work study meeting to review the Planning Commission's recommendation and hopefully march towards a December adoption. The second announcement I wanted to make, and I want to share a document here. I've reported previously on the accessory dwelling unit project that we're working on at KRCC. We did interview consultants, and we're currently negotiating with the Artisans Group. They actually have done this type of work previously for Thurston County, and they have 4 existing ADU plans on file that they are willing to license to us as part of the contract. And so I was just going to show you the plans that we are currently working on acquiring from that consultant. There's a small 1-story ADU. The next 2, this is the same floor plan, but one of them has a bump out for a second bedroom, also 1-story, and the 1-story units are all accessible. And then there's a 2-story plan. And if we end up executing the contract with Artisans Group, we're looking at, it looks like acquiring the licenses to allow anyone in Kitsap County to use these 4 plans, plus they're going to create 2 new plans for us on that project. And so I just wanted to update you on that. And my final announcement is sort of a fun one. I had the pleasure of getting a little over a week off last week, and was in Hong Kong. And Hong Kong is a really bustling place. I was taking the water taxi, which is very similar to Port Orchard's foot ferry, across the harbor. And it occurred to me that Hong Kong Harbor and Sinclair Inlet are of a very similar size. The entire territory is actually about the size of Kitsap County, but this is a photo I took from the top of Victoria Peak of Hong Kong last week. And you know, the carrying capacity of land is quite extraordinary when it's viewed from this perspective. But the crossing here, this is roughly the size of Sinclair Inlet. They've done some filling on their waterfront that has made it a little bit narrower than Sinclair Inlet, but it was an interesting juxtaposition and very interesting for me as a planner to compare the 2 places. So that is all I have.
Thank you. Did you have to confiscate your phone when you went to Hong Kong?
Nope.
Oh, okay, good. Next, Deputy Chief Brandon, do you have anything to share?
I just want to let you guys know I did look a little bit into that sound cameras. Kirkland 2 years ago was the first place in the state to kind of start looking into it, and they said it was going to be a 6-month trial and then make a decision, and nothing has been posted since they tried their trial. There's basically one company out there that's kind of like, hey, we could try to do this, but most technology based on that is more about finding like noise pollution and problems with construction and other noises is what narrowing down that, not necessarily car and racing, even though there are some countries and other places that are kind of looking into it. There's a lot of hope. Like Connecticut says they passed a law saying, great, they can use the cameras, but there's no information about the cameras or how they're going to do it. They just want to place it out there. So I just want to let you guys know that I'm sure with more research, there's more data, but nowhere had really much. They all wanted your contact information to reach out to you, and nothing specific to your guys' questions.
Thank you. I wondered if there were noise activated cameras that could do what we wanted. Councilmember Rosapepe, you have your hand raised.
I do, thank you. Just a real quick question. Have we had any success in any enforcement down there? I know that's been an issue now for several weeks that's been brought up. Any luck?
I mean, it's been brought up, but I know that like even the post that people have complainants have said is when we are in the area, we are able to deter the people, but when we leave for calls, then they continue on. So we are able to respond, and when we are in the area, it does deter things, but we just can't sit there all night long. And then the area they're in is private properties, I believe was discussed last time, in which we can't enforce anything on private property besides being a visual deterrent. But once again, once we leave the area, they continue to do whatever they choose to do if we're not in the area.
Okay, Councilmember Diener.
So the first time it really resonated with me that we have an issue here was when I was on Vancouver Island in the city of Victoria, where I didn't hear loud cars, and it was, or loud bikes either. So it occurred to me that maybe they do things different there. But is there something, Deputy, when you hear a car roll by that is obviously really loud, does that trigger a response?
So one thing I will say, like when I was researching this topic, this is a very common topic. It's a very, like I said, a lot of cities and a lot of towns all around the world are actually like, hey, how do we deal with this? So it's not just a Port Orchard thing. Part of it has to do with just the modern day vehicles. There are rules about what they can do, but exhaust, the rule we have about the noise mainly is the muffler requirement. So there's an RCW 4637-390, and a subsection of it says, no person shall modify the exhaust system of a motor vehicle in a manner which is amplifies or increase the noise emitted by the engine of such vehicle, such above the emitted by the muffler originally installed on the vehicle, and it shall be unlawful for any person to operate a motor vehicle equipped as required by this subsection. But it also has to do with if it's a vehicle over 25 years old, doesn't meet these standards, so older vehicles, we would have to know if a vehicle had a modified exhaust. And we can't tell that just by driving by a vehicle, because I know personally, like I know someone that owns one of the newer Mustangs with the ability just to flip a switch and you have a loud exhaust on it. And so where there has been some success with the noise is when they use decimal readers, but we don't carry decimal readers, and you have to be exactly 500 feet away, which you have to know, are you exactly 500 feet away to test that noise that it puts it above that decimal reading. So though certain things we are able to respond to, it does create challenges when trying to determine the extra laws that go into it.
Okay, Councilmember Morgan.
Thank you. Deputy Chief, I just would be interested if we could provide to council, what type of data tracking we do have as this. I know I live the furthest west in the city you can get, out here in McCormick Meadows, where we have issues, and you can drive out here down Fegley Road. I think that road is exactly a quarter mile. And so there are tire marks everywhere. You can see where the donuts are done in the intersection. I don't think it's all located in one spot, is what I'm trying to say. Yes. And additionally, I know my wife and I keep an ear out for any new ongoing drama as it relates to the Belltown Hellcat that's kind of in the news for similar situation. I'd be interested to know, like, do we have that? How many noise complaints are coming from vehicles, time of day type of situation? Because I believe most of what this would be after 10 p.m. I know here in our HOA, people have tried to say it's an HOA thing. I believe it's a city of Port Orchard. I don't know that to be fact, that we have a noise ordinance after 10 p.m. But those would be things I would be curious to know about, and hopefully we can get either you or the chief to send us some additional information as it relates to that. especially after hearing public testimony at the beginning of tonight's meeting.
I will reach out and see what we can what data we can pull about noise complaints. And see what there is, what kind of information we can get you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fenton.
Oh, this is going towards for Nick. Is it the meeting that you're going to have at the end of the month? Now that's a for public hearing, right? For people to come and say, and also have questions and talk about it, right?
Yes, the public hearing, I'm sorry, I'm looking for my camera button. The public hearing is scheduled. It's open right now. We're accepting testimony in writing up till the 29th. And then the Planning Commission presumably is going to close the public hearing on the 29th after they've taken any additional live testimony that they might receive. So that meeting is advertised. There will be a published agenda, and the public hearing was left open through the 29th.
Okay, no, it would be great to just have more publicity on that, so you get more people and more feedback.
Yeah, we have a mailing list. Everybody who's participated in the process, we do an email blast letting people. We've done that for both the sub-area plans as well as the comprehensive plan, which is all rolled into one proposed action.
Great. Councilmember Diener.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think given recent testimony, including tonight's, that there is an expectation that the city will be addressing noise. And I've seen some speed bumps that have been installed in the parking lot downtown. But I think that we're going to need to be responsive to people, including telling them, like Deputy Chief Brandon told us, is that we can't be there. They watch for cops, and when the cops are not around, that's when they light them up. So that's the difficulty. But there have been starts of other discussions about, well, what if you were to close that lot off at night? That would be kind of a shame, but it's always the bad apples that kind of cause these things. I just am trying to emphasize that this is not going to go away. And I hear it from my house, and I'm fairly far away from Tremont, and people, especially at night, are lighting them up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Ms. Archer, and Ms. Archer, I want to apologize. I don't know how to refer to you as, city attorney or counsel or counselor. So I've just used your name, if that's okay.
Absolutely, that's totally fine. I have nothing further to report this evening, but thank you so much.
And City Clerk Wallace, do you have anything to report to us tonight?
I do not have anything to report.
Okay, great. So that's the department heads. We do not have. Are there any citizens on the premises? Because there are none online.
No members of the public are in City Hall.
So there's no more citizen comments. So it looks like our last item is good of the order. Does anybody have something to share? Mr. Warden, Councilmember Warden.
Yeah, thank you for the title. I'd like to add a couple of things. One is locally at South Kitsap High School, the woodshop teacher, Jeff Nguyen, he won recipient $100,000 from Harbor Freight Tools prize for teaching excellence. So $70,000 goes into the program, and then he as well gets $30,000. So that's pretty neat. It's in the Kitsap Sun today as well. But anyone who knows Jeff knows he's all in, with his students. So that's a really, really cool thing. And also one little shout out, but Deputy Chief Andy Brandon did get his bachelor's. Congratulations.
Nice
job. Yeah. So that's all I have for good of the order.
Great, thank you. And let's see, Councilmember Rosa Pepe.
Just the usual. It's getting to be election season, and please, everybody, make sure you're registered to vote. And when the ballots come out next week, please get your ballots in. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, and Councilmember Fenton.
Yes. At the South Kitsap High School, they had an open house on September 26th, And I just want to give a little shout out to, well, the whole thing went really well. But what was so exciting for me is I went around to all the different clubs, and the kids are so enthusiastic to tell you about what they do. And I just thought that's just super neat. And then my other thing is, and I talked to the mayor about this, and he said, talk to Councilmember Rosenpepe, and if he doesn't want to do that, then bring it up to the good of the order. And I just feel like we are a nonpartisan group. We got voted in by the people, nonpartisan. We're not Democrat, Republican, independent, anything like that. And I think that Councilmember Rosenpepe has just gotten away with this sign, and then we don't say anything. I feel like it doesn't really represent that as how we are as nonpartisan. I don't feel like, what are we all going to just bring whatever we want of, defund the police? Don't defund the police. I'm for abortion. No, I'm for pro-life. I'm for the borders. No, I want, I want closed borders. I think our backdrop should represent how we are in chambers or at the city council. And I think we should implement something like that, that our Zoom meeting, that we are on council meetings, have something to do with not anything that is a political or a social movement. And that's what I feel like we should kind of talk about, or, bring it to, something for later. But I feel that we should bring this up because it's been going on a little too long.
Thank you. And okay, and the next hand up is actually Councilmember Rosenpepe.
Yeah, just a real quick rebuttal to that. One thing is there's nothing in our Port Orchard Municipal Code in the 2.04 section that talks about our backgrounds. I tried to bring a discussion up talking about decorum. I was basically, for lack of better words, that we were too busy with other items, budget and comprehensive plan. If we would like to examine our code, and then I'd be more than glad to have a discussion about backgrounds and other items, not just background. Also, in our code, it says the city council will not endorse or oppose a campaign for election. This is my beliefs, and they are not a political statement. Thank you.
Well, and we can agree to disagree, because your sign is definitely a political and social movement.
Is this where we want to have this discussion?
Well, that's what the mayor said to bring up at this. And so I guess I bring this up so we can, how do we move this to go forward? Do any of you guys agree or no?
Good, Councilmember, I think has his hand raised next. You're muted.
Thank you. I'm clicking challenged, apparently. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I was just going to bring up, maybe there's an easier solution for this. I don't know if maybe we need to think about, is that copyrighted? I don't know where that came from, or if Jay made it himself. I think I've seen it somewhere else. And maybe we should just think about having a Port Orchard so that none of us, I know I took the picture physically that I took, so I think that's my intellectual property. But maybe there is something to be said around that, and utilizing even just a picture that would be not get us in trouble, right? I don't know that it's political by nature, but yeah, maybe there is something about having a conversation about this, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you. Councilmember Diener.
Well, I just want to say that there's nothing there, and Black Lives Matter, no human is illegal, love is love, women's rights are human rights, science is real, water is life. None of that's false. All of that is true. And Heidi, I believe you're making it political.
No, I feel like
all I have to say.
Yeah, no, I feel like we're nonpartisan. And if you look that sign up, it is a political social movement. Look on social Wikipedia. Okay,
I'm familiar with it.
It's defunding.
I had that sign.
It's
familiar with.
defunding the police. And I feel like if we were, we got voted in by our.
I take, point of order, I
Okay,
take
we got-
exception. That's an attack to saying I defund the police, and I take that personally.
But if you go look up Wikipedia on that, then you'll see that. But all I'm saying is that we got voted in as nonpartisan. We didn't get voted in for Democrat, Republican, or, anything like that. And so I'm just saying that maybe we need to re-look at, and if you guys don't want that, then that's fine. But I feel like to bring that up is something important. I mean, because what do we put whatever kind of sign we want and put our own little political, something in there? I think it should be neutral.
Well, she may have a little something, because I believe the Black Lives Matter movement in and of itself has a political agenda that also, not to just say something, at one point, I don't know that they still had a claim for defunding police, but I think that's where she's pulling some of that from. So again, if we want to have this, I think it should be a greater conversation. I don't know that any of this is going to.
I would add that if you understand why the phrase Black Lives Matter came up, it preceded all of that, and it was bastardized into something it was never intended to be. It was a statement that was appropriate for the moment in time, and it's stuck. So I'm happy to have the discussion. I'm not sure we should have this discussion tonight, because that's where we're
No, I wanted to bring it up because I asked the mayor. So he said, bring it up to the good of the order. And I think that we are nonpartisan, and that's how we should be presenting. We got voted in to help our city do zoning, do all kinds, other stuff. And I guess if Jay doesn't say like, hey, go out and vote with this sign behind him, to me, that makes it more political.
Also, I don't know that we've ever had a complaint, just putting it out there, and it's been years.
Well, I'm a new city council person,
Sure.
and I feel like it should be more of a nonpartisan. Do we all want these signs? How come the signs aren't then in our chamber? I mean, if you think that's fine, then do we bring it to our, city council chamber meetings?
I'd like
It should
Mark
be the
to
same.
speak next, and then I have a thought. But Mr. Trinari, Councilmember Trinari, I'm sorry. I'm not used to these long meetings.
Well, Heidi, I appreciate your opinion and your willingness to bring that up, but I don't think this is the proper setting to discuss this. I don't personally see an issue in it, and I personally don't see it as a political statement either. But we all have our own opinions, and we're entitled to them. Jay has his opinion. And I believe we do have, as a council, we do have a precedence that says we cannot have political statements on here. As Ms. Archer got me on when I was trying to fumble my way into our Zoom program or the Teams program, or whichever one I was in at that point, for a short period of time. It's just, this is not the time frame to be discussing that. But fortunately for us all, we have one meeting left on Zoom, and then we'll be back in council, and it won't really matter at that point, will it?
Well, maybe it should just go forward, that's all, because it could happen again, who knows? We might be on Zoom for a while.
Councilmember Rosa Pepe.
Yeah, I will defer right now to Charlie to see if there's anything political that meets our Port Orchard Municipal Code. Otherwise, I would ask that we would defer this to a work study session to talk about I'm talking to Charlie just for a second, Ms. Fenton, Port Orchard Municipal Code, and talk about the total code, not just one specific item.
So to the question with regards to political speech that Councilmember Trinari flagged and Councilmember Rosa Pepe also mentioned, as you're all aware, I've had to interrupt members of the public speaking before. We are not allowed to use our platform or any resources at the city to advocate on behalf of a current candidate for office who is appearing on a ballot or any current ballot measures. as the sign does not reflect either of those prohibited areas, that sign would not be something that if Councilmember Rosa Pepe were to be holding it in a council chambers or is using it as a background, that would not be prohibited by the Port Orchard Municipal Code or state law.
Okay, I have a quick item. I do value this discussion, and I hope that we are able to discuss it civilly. I appreciate what the city attorney said, that it is not a political statement. I will say, though, that it is something that it does state a value, and it is which may provoke some discussion or controversy. But the item that I wanted to bring up for good of the order is actually that you think about, I know at another meeting that we've sort of talked about, which would be a brainstorming meeting where each of us would have a topic, we could go around the table. The mayor, of course, would be welcome and would be invited to moderate it. It would be a public meeting. We would notice everyone. But I think of this as more as coffee for the council, where we're just talking about items that I've heard individually from a couple of you. I think it would be helpful if we spoke about them as a whole. For example, we might want to talk about communication. We may want to talk about the value of a project manager. So I'd like you to all think about a date that is, I know at this point you probably don't want to think about any more meetings, but I think I will ask Brandy to send an email and ask that we just pick a date. I'm going to suggest maybe a Saturday morning. So this would be I'm calling it a brainstorming meeting. And yes, Mr. Trenari, Councilmember Trenari.
Well, Mayor Pro Tem Paul, I'd like to defer until you're done with your statement. I just have something on another topic for you.
Sure. I've completed my statement. Thank you.
Well, see, now I feel like I cut you off. Hey, I just wanted to say though, Fred or Mayor Pro Temp Chang, I think you did a great job herding cats tonight. The meeting was a little spirited, a little spunky. We got off on a bunch of different tangents, but you did a heck of a good job keeping us on target, and I commend you for that. So thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Diener.
Yeah, I would agree. You did a good job tonight, Fred, challenging subjects. Is there a reason the meeting that you're proposing couldn't be a work study? Just a free-flowing exchange of ideas at work study?
It certainly could be a work study, but given that our work study schedule is so packed, I don't think it would be feasible. And I think something, I know your weekends are probably packed, but something I think that has less of a pressure. I'm just hoping that we can find ourselves with more energy at the beginning of a meeting, perhaps in the morning, and be in a good mood. So that's sort of the setting that I'm hoping for in this other meeting. Yes.
I would ask us to encourage another weekday night if this is something that we want to do.
Okay.
Because my weekends are
sacred,
pretty valuable.
Okay. I will ask Brandy to send us like a poll where we can pick dates, and I'm open anytime. Well, more flexible. Yes, Councilmember Rosa Pepe.
Just real quick to weigh in, I'm in favor of having a meeting that would be kind of free flowing. I know that when we do our retreats, they're very packed and very budget driven. I think this would be a good time to think about the what ifs, not that there's millions of dollars floating around, but even, how do we imagine the city 5, 10, 15 years from now? I've got my own little, quirks regarding parks that I would like to see for equity in between historic Port Orchard and Port Orchard west of 16. But that's the type of thing that we could have, discussions about. How do we, what's our vision for the city as we move forward? So I would strongly encourage it. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea to kind of have the mayor there and, basically without, any pressure at all on any of us. So it'd be kind of fun. So 2 thumbs up here.
Thank you. And Councilmember Morrissey.
Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in. I too would not be in favor of a weekend that would take time away from my work, right? I work on weekends. My weekends are on Thursday and Friday. So I give up a lot of those for some of the things that we do already. Additionally, I would be in favor of having brainstorming sessions. And I think thirdly, I'm wearing my Miss Archer hat. I believe anytime we meet, we have to have a published agenda and talk about the topics on that published agenda. I think we can amend it kind of as we go, but I don't know about all the parameters on that. So we may have to have some official weighing in there.
And Fred, one thing I don't know about is what has the mayor had to say about this?
He actually indicated that he thought we could do it all tonight for good of the order. And I didn't think that was a very realistic assessment of the type of conversation that we'd want to have. Also, I think that given that we'd had like 2 hours of business, you know, we might be a little exhausted after that. So,
Okay.
okay, well, if is there anything else for the good of the order? Seeing nothing, I am going to adjourn the meeting.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you,
Good night.
Jay. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everybody. Fred, thank you.